Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome. I am VeeDotMe, and we have a treat straight from the devs of Dead Cells. This is that roguelike permadeath, high difficulty game that you all have been playing on Steam, console, and even on your phones at this point. These devs are still working around the clock to get us content, and apparently they are still going as of today. Update of Plenty, the latest alpha patch in Dead Cells. This is honestly a ton of stuff. Highly surprised that this many things can go in. I know that this is a lot of balance changing, so that definitely will have a lot of items that go along with it. But this is an awful lot. Now remember, we just recently did a video about the devs doing a survey, and that survey had questions in regards to all the different weapons that people like to use. The balancing that's going on is taking a look at the items that people use the most, the items that people use the least, and everything in between, and bringing stuff down, bringing other things up where appropriate. And I'm gonna assume that they're gonna do a great job with it. Definitely thank you all who like this kind of talk content. If you do enjoy patch note reading, tier lists, boss guides, all of that kind of stuff, definitely like and subscribe. Some of my favorite kinds of YouTubers are the ones who go deep into the actual content of the game, and this is something I'm hoping to do for you all as well. Alright, but without further ado, let's go ahead and go through some of this weapon stuff. Now, that's the very first section here. Following the extremely successful weapon popularity poll, we tried to give some love to the less liked weapons and nerf the most effective. Now, we can already guess what some of the most effective stuff is. I mean, we've made builds and kind of showcased ourselves, so we can't really blame the devs for any kind of nerfs, but I'm really happy to see that some things are getting like full reworks, which is kind of cool. Most of the changes consist of slightly numbered tweaks. Some are more profound reworks, but there are notable exceptions. All crossbows, with the exception of Sonic Crossbow, which is now Sonic Carbine, are now two-handed weapons and survival only. So if you remember, top 3 tactics, we put Heavy Crossbow in there simply because of the fact that you can play it like a full tank. You get tons of damage from support mutation, and you can get all your arrows back with the shield. So it was way too easy to play. There's also the Reddit brute force build. That was a survival version of Heavy Crossbow, and that got top Reddit gold, karma, all kinds of stuff that you could get. And that's how you know that maybe it's a little strong. So they decided to make it two-handed and survival only. So two-handed removes the chance to use a shield, but also means that you won't be able to do anything like Hokuto, Ice Bow, Ice Blast, all of that stuff. You're locked into using the shoddy just like you were playing a scythe. And that's definitely going to be interesting to see. Multiple Nox Bow, Marksman Bow, and Nerves of Steel are now tactics only. So Nerves of Steel, while playing tactics, definitely didn't feel like tactics to me. Nerves of Steel while playing survival definitely didn't feel like survival to me. What was really fun was putting it with the Mushroom Boy, and for the most part, nothing can get to you, and in the odd chance they do, the Mushroom Boy knocks it back. So having it as tactics only and buffed, pretty interesting. Marksman Bow, I don't mind it being tactics only because I don't think that it's a very engaging weapon to begin with. So getting it off of survival at least pushes people to play a specific kind of like tranquility, maybe an owl, this like far range gameplay where you kite backwards, and hopefully it works for you until you get to a boss that runs you down. These weapons never really shine in tactics because there are few reasons to take them, and we were forced to make them less efficient than other pure tactics ranged weapons to balance for the dual scaling. With the two-handed weapons becoming part of survival identity, it felt only natural to increase the efficiency of these weapons to make them better on par with other choices, and to make it pure tactic. Now, for things becoming two-hand only and survival, I can understand there's possibly some confusion on, okay, survival is this tanky build where I'm using a shield, and I'm just running through like a classic knight in an action game. But then you also have this like slow two-handed weapon style. Think Scythe is the best example. But even in other games where you have like the biggest weapons are the slowest and the tankiest builds, I think that's what they're going for. And having all the crossbows in that kind of makes sense. Think of your like giant slayer bows and stuff like that in like Monster Hunter or whatever. Like it's slow gameplay, but when it works, it's like really impactful. All right, economy rework. It has been brought to our attention several times that the economy in Dead Cells was peculiar. While everything seemed to be fine at low levels, it was worse in higher BCs, where if you wanted to buy any healing, you were basically never spending gold on anything else. To fix this, we implemented several changes, small and big, some detailed below. So I understand that gold was a challenge in higher BCs. Whether I can say it was really an issue for me is kind of hard to say. When you play so many games, it's kind of hard to find where a single purchase may have screwed you for the rest of the game. But it does happen. I've had a few chances where maybe I bought something really strong in Stilt Village or Slumbering Sanctuary, and then I couldn't afford anything in Caverns, or I couldn't afford anything in Forgotten Sepulchre. And if that's what they're trying to address, then that's great. Of course, you could also say that being able to buy everything doesn't really make it a roguelike anymore. Think about your favorite roguelikes and how it's a struggle to keep money, and you have to basically assume that your one purchase is gonna be locked in for a long time. So I don't know how well this is gonna go, but I'm more than happy to see the changes. Alright, so short list of what changed. Gold scaling is gone. A good amount of items had their prices changed. Gold scaling gear price now goes up with item level. Refining and a fixed reroll cost has been changed. Shop categories are now stats instead of equipment type. And the reroll is free, but the items are more expensive. So the big things here, really the real thing that I care about is the shop categories. So when you go to a shop, it's now either brutality, tactics, or survival. If you can imagine that you're playing survival already, and you go into a skill shop, you have the choice between turret, grenade, or power. And the chance of you actually finding a survival weapon in those is a little slim because survival has the least amount of powers. So having it set up this way is kind of interesting, because when you go to get a survival item, let's say you really wanted a grenade and you didn't get the grenade, instead you got like the new Heavy Crossbow, a scythe, and a shield. Well, now you might say, okay, maybe I don't want to play grenade anymore. Maybe I'm just gonna take this scythe and I don't need any grenades. I'm gonna kill everything with scythe. Or maybe you were trying to find a turret and you're thinking that, okay, the turret is like, I just need a wolf trap. If I can get that, the entire game opens up. And then you see something like a shovel, and it's like, okay, I guess I don't need wolf trap anymore because the shovel does all the work. So I really like that idea. Gear qualities and damage rework. Bonus stats have been removed from plus and S gear to compensate. New scrolls have been added to biomes. This change was implemented to give some importance to gear level and pair with the economy rebalance and give you incentive to switch gear. So what they're talking about, for those who don't have their forge maxed out, is that every piece of gear that you get that's plus and higher has scrolls attached to it. And what that means is that in 5 BC, we're actually loading into the map with 8 scrolls already tied to the character. 4 on your main hand and your offhand, and then another 4 on both your skills. And what that means is that you could be locked into your color like almost as soon as you find the first set of gear. And what that also means is that any kind of monster scaling has to assume a certain HP value because of the scrolls you have. Not to mention that you might have a run where your scrolls are kind of mixed, like a rainbow setup, where prison quarters is actually harder than if you had like a lucky roll with all brutality. So this addresses that. I think it's cool. I'm a little curious on my health values, because remember, scrolls also give you your health. So when you load into prison quarters and you are 1, 1, and 1 on scrolls, that sounds like it could be kind of dangerous. So definitely want to see how that works out. All right, new dot, shocked and dot reworks. DOT stats were blended together a bit too much. We decided to try and give each a unique identity. Most electric weapons and items inflict this new shock DOT. So shocked, what that does is it deals damage over time, just like anything else, but it applies to the target and the targets that are around it. Hopefully that means that Wings of the Crow also does shock. Remember, Wings did absolutely nothing previously, but being able to do something with electricity is kind of fun. Bleed rework, stack enough bleed status and damages left is instantaneously dealt. So I'm gonna guess that means once you reach the cap, it pops on the monster and inflicts damage. Kind of cool. That's a buff to your blood swords, maybe your sinew slicer. Definitely we're gonna see cleaver in the top slot. Like, that's kind of disgusting. Poison rework. Upon death, propagate poison status with reduced damage and the remaining duration. So poison being able to leave a cloud, I guess, on other monsters is pretty cool. There's lots of affixes that already do cloud on death, but let's say you don't get that and you're walking around with an alchemic carbine. That means that if the monster walks out of the cloud and you kill it, then anything around it gets poisoned again. So I think that's probably cool. And then fire is unchanged, which is fine. I don't think anything was really wrong with fire, aside from clarity on how it works with oil. All right, damage mutation rework. Damage mutations suffer from poor scaling, making them extremely useful at low difficulties, but less when you're on 5BC. To remedy that, we changed their bonus from a bonus DP to a bonus % of all damage. So I'm a little worried about this, not gonna lie. Let's say combo does 10% bonus damage. Like, maybe that's not that much, but you can use combo on a boss with your giant killer, and 10% on the giant killer is pretty big. Gastro is another thing that was pretty useless on survival besides using repeater crossbow. And now if you can imagine taking Gastro with the scythe, that's probably overkill, but 10% bonus damage on scythe is probably a big number. So I feel like these damage mutations are gonna be kind of big. Definitely gonna practice more Gastro and see how it works with survival on bosses. And then combo, if that works with Conjunctivius or Hand of the King, you might have some really good brutality fights there. All right, balancing. All bonus damage affixes chances of being generated have been lowered. Every item felt like it had 3 to 4 dots, and we want to make a point in not building your build around it. So yeah, we just had an example where we had fire grenades. The fire grenade did bonus to bleed, bonus to poison, bonus to freezing, and that took over everything that the fire grenade could do. I don't know if they're gonna replace those affixes with something cool. Let's say give you my arrows back, spread oil on the enemy, maybe even like slow enemy on hit or something like that. I don't really know, but sure, let's go ahead and get rid of the rainbow affixes on everything. All right, gold scaling has been removed from the game. While it's less impressive to gain 500 gold than 40k, it's also more easy to grasp. So this is where they're toning down the amount of gold we have on the map. Again, that's all for their economy And if they want to make a change like that, I'm all for it. As long as the math lines up and I can actually afford stuff in prison quarters, then it's probably fine. If I go into prison quarters with $0 and I can't buy anything on the map even after a full clear, that's probably a problem. So I'm gonna assume that's gonna be addressed in the alpha. Many items base prices have been changed. So what they're talking about here is that there's some arbitrary number tied to how much an item is worth. Who it's set by, I don't know. All I'll say is that items that had percent damage reduction were more expensive. Giant Killer was more expensive. And items like that could probably be toned down. Things that are apparently high meta had their price go up, including grenades and Heavy Crossbow. Now again, I'm sure there's some table back there where there's reasoning as to why these items have to be more expensive. And if there's not, then so be it. Let's just have like some stock market where these are just really high for some reason. Alright, legendary items no longer give scrolls and give less bonus damage. They're still working on how to balance this out. So I am a little worried about legendary weapons. I know a lot of people say that they aren't very good, but as you all know, I use legendaries almost every time I see them. I find real value in having a plethora of affixes to choose from for a low price, and the fact that you can use 2 items. Now, if they wanted to do something like add the additional star affix so that every legendary has 2, you get into some dangerous territory of, for example, Lightning Bolt that does 50% bonus and 100% bonus. And if they want that to be legendary, then I'll certainly take it. If they want to do something more unique than that, it kind of remains to be seen. Alright, enemy damage has been decreased to make up for the loss of scrolls. This is very much work in progress. Please let us know if enemies do too much or too little. So this is gonna definitely be tough. In 4BC and higher, you have Failed Experiment, Inquisitors, Oven Knights, like all kinds of stuff that does real damage in prison quarters. And I feel like I want them to do real damage, but of course when you have 0 stats, you also don't want to get 1 tapped. But maybe you do, I don't know. Maybe I walk into prison quarters and I do want to get sniped from across the screen and have to restart. If that's what it ends up being, then so be it. And that's a brand new game for us and we'll enjoy it just the same. So to make up for the lack of scrolls, they're giving us a free amulet. I'm gonna assume that amulet is a double amulet in 4BC. If it's a triple amulet, then that's probably hard to balance, but having 2 bonus stats, that's fine. Mobs now teleport to you much faster in 4BC. We just did Bloodshot Melees and we were saying that that teleport looks really good. So I hope that the devs literally just looked at Bloodshot Melees and said, yeah, whatever that is, put it in the game. That looks fun. Skills no longer proc rally nor cooldown reduction. So that's a big hit to Lacerating Aura, big hit to Corrupted Power. This is, again, keeping player levels in check. I feel like that's the name of the game now, is that player confidence is really high, and we gotta tone that down a little bit. Alright, so now we get into the reworks and the buffs. As you see, there's a lot of stuff, so I'm gonna try to bang these out as best I can and really focus on the meaningful things. So the first one on the list, why is the first one on the list? I have no idea. Reworked Heavy Crossbow, Survival 2-handed. Your offhand reloads the crossbow with a Valley of Critical Bolts. So it's kind of cool to think about the idea that you have a literal shotgun. You're gonna shoot the monster, you're gonna reload the clip, and then you're gonna shoot again. And I guess maybe the reload has bonus damage applied to it. So I like that idea, and it also nerfs you because you can't have a shield at the same time. The hook no longer pierces, so that's also a nerf. Again, we used to just go into a hallway, hook in everything that's in front, and then just blow straight through it. Literally nothing monsters could do about it, and now they at least have a chance. And if you run out of ammo, maybe you get punched by a golem while you're trying to reload, and that actually sounds really funny. Damage dealt by the volley of bolts is now capped by boss damage cap. So what they mean by that is all of the shots that fired out, each one applied separately to the boss's health bar. So I guess they're gonna try to cut off the maximum number you can deal with the single weapon. Alright, repeater crossbow. Same deal, two-handed survival. Main hand is still an AK, but the fire rate has been reduced. And it now roots on every 4th bullet. So that's a straight up nerf to the standard attack. But then they added an offhand attack that fires out multiple shots that crit rooted enemies. So I'm gonna assume it's like a bunker down kind of skill, where you're basically shooting normally wherever you have to, but then if you have the wolf trap, you can just roll backwards, press triangle, and then the character like locks into a stance and just fires out arrows that crit. I like that idea because again, the nerf is because your monsters can now play with the game. Alright, ice crossbows. Main hand has been unchanged except it no longer charges. So it's still just a spammable ice weapon, but then the offhand fires a long range, ultra fast bolt with infinite piercing, which crits on frozen enemies. So I can only imagine you throw an ice grenade and then you press triangle and like everything gets crit. Now, hopefully the damage is good. If the monsters don't die while frozen, it's probably a little unfortunate because then I might as well just use any other survival weapon. Either way, I like the idea of it. Ultra fast bolt with infinite piercing, that just rolls off the tongue real well. I like that. Rework explosive crossbows. Main fire is not changed. Offhand is now a melee with a surprise. So I don't know what that means. Explosive crossbows' #1 issue is if monsters are too close. Take a slasher for example. You're point blank, you fire out the bolt, it hits it, it might give it a tiny stun, a little bit of breach, might knock it upward, but chances are it's just gonna swing on you. So if the offhand is designed to counter that, because again, I don't think explosive crossbow was very strong to begin with, but if this is something to balance it but also like increase the power level a little bit, then I actually like that idea. Reworked war javelin. Pressing the button again teleports you to the javelin, no longer profits from ammo. So I think that's probably strong. Now hear me out, because javelin kills a lot of stuff in biomes. Being able to teleport to the javelin after it's gone through all the monsters and then throw the javelin the opposite way and then just ping pong back and forth, that might be kind of strong in a biome. On bosses, of course your javelin isn't the base weapon. Imagine throwing the javelin at Hand of the King, he's doing his combo, and you teleport through him and dodge the combo. I'm gonna assume it's not that good, but if it does have some kind of like immunity to it where you can like actually outplay monsters using War Javelin, I think that's probably kind of cool to see. Rework Wings of the Crow. Okay, so finally we got Wings of the Crow changes. After all these years, after all the vids that we had to post up of Wings of the Crow, it's finally here. Now features up and down movement, and you can run normally with it and jump again to take flight. I don't know how long Wings of the Crow is supposed to last, but having up and down movement is already a huge success. My main issue with Wings is that you activate it, you kill things in the hallway, and then you have to go up because the next monsters are above you. And like, what do? You have to deactivate the wing, goes on a 24-second cooldown, and now you have to play normally. So you really only have Wings of the Crow for maybe 2 monsters. If you can actually move between platforms with the wings, if you can actually land on the ground, fight normally, then jump back up, that's actually really good. Attacking enemies with weapons now inflict a new shock, so if it doesn't care what weapon I have, that's kind of good. I imagine having something like a kunai with Wings of the Crow, inflicting both bleed and shock at the same time. That's gotta be strong. Stomping no longer cancels it. It's only reactivated. It's only canceled by reactivation, and stomping deals extra damage. So I don't know how much bonus damage you're gonna deal, but you could probably do some cool stuff where you have Wings of the Crow with kunai or the electric whip. You're all the way up in the air, attacking while the monster can't get to you, and then before the actual duration ends, you just down slam and then fight normally. All right, Rework Tonic. This and Vampirism are probably my favorite things in the game. I can't believe they were able to actually add something completely different to Tonic. So what they did was it no longer requires a health flask or a level charge to use again. It just has a basic cooldown just like everything else. It doesn't heal you anymore. Instead, what it does is it gives you a portion of your missing health as a bonus health. So think about all your favorite like PvP games where there's bonus health added to the character, and that's like the ticket to actually surviving fights. It also reduces damage you take, prevents melees, increases movement speed, and shortens dodge cooldown. So it's literally like a stim pack that you put into the character, and it's just better. Now, losing the invincibility, that's kind of whatever, but I think the idea of reusable bonus max health is probably really good. It's like fake healing, where so long as you don't lose beyond that max health, you're making out positive in the end. And then coupled with that, Reworked Vamp no longer requires the same stuff, it's just a normal cooldown. They got rid of the idea of dropping little health flasks across the map. But now what it does is it takes your entire health bar. You could be at 50 health, you could be at 50,000 health. It eats your health, transforms your missing health into rally. And for those who don't know what that is, that's whenever you deal damage, you get your health back. So it's literally like you're turning yourself into zombie mode. You're gonna go out and you're gonna kill monsters to heal yourself. It even says high risk, high reward here. So I really like that idea. It's super dangerous, and I really think that some weapons are gonna be better at it than others. But I like the concept of you could possibly lose the run in exchange for getting your health back. Now, I don't think that the average player is gonna use this more than once per run. I think it's still kinda in the last ditch effort where you find it, you use it, and then you go through a map and then actually get all your health back. But there might be a circumstance where you're thinking, okay, I need to run Vampirism because I'm constantly losing health. Say for example, you're playing a double damage weapon where every time you get tapped, your HP goes to 1. Maybe this is a way for you to get your health back on a consistent basis. Either way, if you get hit, you're going down to 1 HP regardless. Alright, Rework Tentacle Whip. Added a kick that bumps enemies away when striking an enemy too close for a crit. So that's kinda cool. I'm gonna assume that they're talking about when you're face to face with a monster, you're spamming the Tentacle Whip and all you're doing is like poking the monster in the face. What they did is somehow calculated a kick in there to knock the enemy backwards. And I like that idea. The only thing I'm a little worried about is when you actually like Spidey into a monster, take something with high HP like a hammer or a failed experiment. You web sling in, you crit, you don't kill it, you turn around, and then you kick it away. I would prefer the kick to kill it rather than me to have to do another whip, because then that's like 3 actions, and I don't know if I want to go through the effort of 3 actions compared to just 1 in regards to like a sight. Buffed and reworked the Ice Shard. Aim here is to give Ice Shard strong identity as a secondary weapon. So they remove the ammo, increase the slow, and reduce the crit damage. They also made ice shards green, green and purple. So that completely nerfs the oil sword setup. Now you need a cursed version of the ice shard or a cursed oil sword to do it. I think green ice shards are probably gonna be really strong. I think Heart of Ice is probably one of the best mutations in the entire game. And now the idea of spamming giant whistles on bosses because you have slowed Timekeeper or slowed Conjunctivius is probably really strong. All I'm gonna assume is that because it's an offhand and you have to use something like a flint or a shovel in the main hand, it's technically not that great. But what I would like to see is Ice Shard with Frantic Sword and Heart of Ice coupled with Corrupted Power or Lacerating Aura. And if that's as strong as I'm hoping it is, then we might have some really good builds. Alright, next, a buff to all the starting weapons. I'm gonna assume that's for people just starting the game. The devs did confirm that 0 BC is basically the tutorial, so let's make the tutorial just a little bit easier. Buff Nutcracker, increase the range and rework the animation. Now that's awesome. I like the Nutcracker's horizontal. The vertical swing kind of sucks, but that horizontal swing feels really good. So if it's more stuff like that, I'm all for it. Buffed Root Grenade, increase the duration and slightly increase the damage. That's good. Stun Grenade, reduce the cooldown. This puts it a little more on par with Ice Grenade, which I kind of feel is a better weapon. But Stun Grenade gives things like oil on hit and ammo retrieved. So that should be really cool. Frost Blast, increase the range, remove the ammo. Again, another buff to survival builds. I think it's probably strong, but we'll wait and see. My guess is that Broadsword plus Fire Blast is a lot more entertaining than Broadsword plus Shield. Buff Spartan Sandal, increase hit damage. I don't know why. It already kills most things when you kick it into a wall, but maybe the initial kick needed to do more. Buff the Torch, increase hit damage. A lot of people have Torch in the S rank. I didn't, but S rank torches are now even better than they were before. Buff Knockback Shield, increase damage dealt to enemies projected against the wall. This is kind of whatever. I mean, if you can knock an enemy into a wall, it's probably gonna die regardless, but Knockback really goes double down on that. Buff Crusher now slows enemies in the area. No longer do you have to kite around your own Crusher. If you throw it down, chances are that monster is gonna get hit by it. Buffed Speight Sword, increase the damage, slightly reduce the forward momentum. So what this is that every time you attack with the Speight Sword, it actually made you step forward by 1. And that could be awkward because you might straight up miss an attack. So if they had a way to reduce that, then that's awesome to see. Multiple Knock, increase ammo, remove survival, increase rate of fire. This is a entry-level tactics weapon. Looks like they're gonna keep that as the identity of the weapon, which I think is good. Marksman Bow, increase the ammo, remove the survival scaling. This is not an entry weapon, but the kind of gameplay is like classic tactics where you want to stay back and shoot things. And if survival was the reason why they kept it more difficult to use, then yeah, let's get rid of it, put it on tactics, and have that gameplay for those people who want it. Buff Nerves of Steel. This was again probably one of the best ranged survival weapons in the game. They decided to remove the survival scaling, put it on tactics, and now you have I wouldn't want to say an in-game bow, but this is something that works at almost all stages of the game. Buff Spike Boots, rework the animation and hitbox, slight damage buff. So we weren't really using Spike Boots because it's just not a very entertaining weapon to watch. If they change the animations in a way that makes it cooler to watch and the damage is better, then yeah, I'm gonna use melee mutation and start kicking stuff. That's the Timberlands for all my New Yorkers out there. Buffed Balance Blade, increase the crit time, increase the base damage but reduce damage gained with subsequent hit. I feel as though there's someone out there where Balance Blade is on the cusp of being too good. And that person is saying, no, whatever you do to the Balance Blade, you can't do it without my input. I need to sign off on every single Balance Blade buff. Increased crit time, awesome. Increased base damage, like the initial hit, awesome. The reduced damage from staying on top of a target, I don't know why that was necessary. Because you're already struggling in normal games to kill slashers and hammers. So maybe this is a concept where, like with the other things, buff combo, buffed vengeance, Balance Blade is actually too strong with percent bonus damage. So this, I'm gonna have to see it in action. Buff Bloodsword, again, I don't use Bloodsword, but they increased the bleeding and buffed bleeding itself, so probably better now. And when you couple it with Hokuto, I'm gonna assume that bleed explosion is gonna be awesome. Alright, buffed Flint, faster charge, larger sparks, and sparks now ignite oil. I think that is actually super cool because survival already doesn't do much with oil as is. So I think the concept of giving survival some kind of oil gameplay while also making it better to use the charge is the right move. I know there's people out there that are literally spamming auto attacks with the Flint. That wasn't what it was intended for, so if we can find more reasons to charge it, that's better. Buffed Greed Shield. Remove the gold cap to receive full gold. Again, I don't really care one way or another about this. If the gold number with the new economy is now like giga busted, then yeah, maybe I'll use Greed Shield for like prison quarters to make sure I can buy something. But besides that, I'm probably gonna ditch it, just like I always was. I do want to be proven wrong though. If it does become a chance where that Greed Shield is the reason why you can buy the new stuff, then yeah, maybe it is the actual way that you win games. Alright, buffed Sonic Carbine. That's because they want to keep it one-handed. Increase the damage, increase the range. I'm gonna assume that they probably can't increase the damage enough to make it actually worthwhile. If it's a matter of me staring down Hand of the King or staring down Timekeeper, and I can get in like say 4 or 5 bullets before I have to run for my life, then I'm not gonna want to use Sonic Carbine for that. That's gonna be a quick bow, or that's gonna be the new Nerves of Steel. But again, I want to be proven wrong, so I will wait and see how it looks. Buff Symmetrical Lance, increase the range. This is another item that's like on the teeter-totter of OP and not worth using. And that's because it doesn't have the air stall. So when you're fighting stuff like the Giant, then you can't really hit the fist very well. But increasing the range, that's about as close to getting it to that tip of the iceberg as they can actually make it. I think if they did anything else to Symmetrical Lance, it'll probably blow all the other survival weapons out the water, except Scythe and R&B. Alright, nerfed Rampart, reduce the invincibility time after parrying, added an effects if the invincibility is about to wear off. So this is a no-brainer. I'm actually surprised that the parrying doesn't scale off survival or anything of that sort, because like people can still take Rampart while tactics and do the same thing as survival. If they were able to add scaling to it, then that's great. Like that means we're on the right track. Nerf Flamethrower, increase the cooldown. That's probably the only nerf they could do that's actually worthwhile. Having 6-second flamethrowers is actually ridiculous. So make it like 12 seconds or so. I think that's probably fair. Nerfed Wolf Trap, reduce the root, reduce the bonus damage. So reducing the root makes sense because there's 2 traps. Like why have the monster go through 2 traps and immediately get trapped again? again, we want the monsters to play the game too. So yeah, let's go ahead and nerf that just a little bit. Reduce the bonus damage. I don't know if that's necessary because like the global changes to damage being done, but maybe they've done testing where you have support mutation, wolf trap, and the new sonic carbine, and maybe it's too strong. Had to nerf it. All right, nerf tick sight. Slightly lower damage. Taking a hit will now cancel the critical chain. Are you kidding me? So this is pretty decent. So the big thing about the tick sight was that when you have berserk, you can just blow through levels. If you take a hit, doesn't matter because you'll get all your health back on a crit. Will you actually not be able to one-shot stuff because of lower damage? I can't imagine they lowered it that much to not kill a monster. But canceling the critical chain, that's something I didn't think of. So big props to whatever dev is out there who did this one. Definitely give that person a raise. Nerfed R&B, reduced the damage. Hopefully they didn't nerf it too much because R&B can kind of be a lot of work for the player, and we don't want them to have like just too much effort to too little payoff. Nerfed Quick Bow, reduced the crit damage. That's kind of scary because overall damage is probably lower, but it remains to be seen. Maybe again, DPS mutations are now the way to go, and you can't have base Quick Bow because it's too strong. Finally, Nerf Necromancy only heals you to 50%. So that's the only nerf they did to it. I'm actually okay with that. You still get malaise reduction, so you could still take it with tactics if you want. But now you have the option of taking something like the brand new Vamp, and you don't have to rely on Necro for healing. Or you could go with the new Vamp and Extendo heal. That way you can always have malaise reduction. And then if you happen to get hit by a boss, you just vamp up on the next map. All right, Electric Whip no longer dual scales. It's tactics only. Wow, okay. I am very surprised about that. Electric Whip is actually a starter weapon. So people who load in the game, they don't really know why it's brutality and tactics, but at the end, where brutality is like super tanky, having Electric Whip doing massive damage while you also have a big health bar doesn't make a lot of sense. So sure, tactics only, I'm okay with that. Alright, buff the Clock Tower, slight nerf to Forgotten Sepulchre, I'm in agreement with that. Rapier, dual scale with brutality and tactics. The run and gun and roll and gun kind of gameplay is tactics synonymous. Sure. I'm sure there's people out there who really asked for tactics rapiers, and I didn't. And I assume that they know what they're talking about. The new duelist mob, that's the alien for those who don't know, buffed in Slumbering Sanctuary. Now that's a monster that I really want to see buffed. And that's because whenever we find it, we just blow it up. And if they somehow made it so that it will actually have an action, I am all for that. Buff bonus damage on stunned enemies, a fixed chance, that's fun. New bonus damage on immobilized target and shocked targets. So that's cool. New stuff added to the new affixes. Level design. Guardians, soon to be renamed Oven Knights. So give yourselves a clap, round of applause, pat on the back to everyone in the chat and YouTube, whoever it was that said rename this monster because Guardian is like a terrible name. This is you. You did this. Oven Knight confirmed. Coming to a console near you. Slumbering Sanctuary Bestiary has been revisited to have new mobs in the sleeping part. I'm gonna hope that the alien is in the sleeping part. I want to see more aliens. That's basically all there is to it. I think the monster looks cool. I think it does cool stuff like the Oven Knight. It's a skill check for the player. And the more of those we have in the game, I think the better overall. We got some graphics and UI changes. Now display the crit values, that's fine. Quality of life, the Vorpan does not appear for the first few runs. I guess that's fine. Maybe Vorpan was a little too strong on the first playthrough. So just like mutations that drop from bosses, let's have it show up a little later. Your very first run through prison quarters does not contain lore rooms. I'm not quite sure what that was. I feel as though the first run should have lore, unless they find that most players aren't reading them until later. And then, as we said earlier, shop categories are now replaced by stats. Alright, and then finally, bug fixes. Weird interactions with crow's feet was removed. Bleed on parry, given back the blood shield. Victims burn, now forbidden on Frost Blast and Ice Crossbow. Alright, so overall, I'd say this is a 10 out of 10 patch. Like, 100%. Tonic and Vamp, probably my favorite things that they changed here. The Heavy Crossbow now having a reload mechanic. Again, give these people raises. Whoever was stuck in the lab trying to code that, like, how do I do this? There's nothing in the game that remotely looks like reloading. So whoever did it, big ups to that person. Alright, so other than that, that's a patch and a half. I mean, again, the devs constantly putting this stuff out for us. Free content right here. The only thing we've paid $5 for Bad Seed DLC. Once again, I want to thank everyone for tuning into this video. If you have a different favorite update in this patch, or you have some complaints, definitely put them in the comments, because I'm excited to see what you all think about this. Other than that, hop on that alpha, try the game out for yourself, and let me know what you think. I'll talk to you all later.